In every country, there are places that appear on maps, yet somehow feel forgotten by the world. Greyfall was one of them, a small Victorian town hidden behind forests, hills, and almost constant fog. Travelers passed through. Few ever stayed. Those who lived there spoke quietly, worked quietly, and asked very few questions. From a distance, Greyfall seemed ordinary, but appearances can be misleading, because beneath its streets, beneath its churches, beneath the layers of fog that never seemed to leave, something waited, something old, something patient. For generations, the people of Greyfall shared stories, not openly, never during daylight, only in whispers, only behind closed doors. Most of those stories disappeared with time. One did not. One story survived every generation, the story of a circus that appeared from the fog, a circus that no one ever saw arrive, and no one ever saw leave, a circus that returned every 7 years, and every time it returned, someone disappeared. In the autumn of 1887, the circus returned once more, and this time, its story would become linked to a boy named Thomas Whitmore. Thomas was 11 years old, curious, restless, the kind of child who constantly looked beyond the horizon, while other children played in the streets. Thomas spent his time near Greyfall Station, watching trains arrive, watching them leave, wondering where they were going, wondering what existed beyond the fog. His father often told him that Greyfall was enough, that everything a person needed could be found there. Thomas never argued, but he never believed it, because every time he watched a train disappear into the distance, he felt the same thing, a pull, a calling, as if something beyond Greyfall was waiting for him. What Thomas could not know was that something was already searching for him. 3 days later, the letter appeared. No one delivered it. No one saw it arrive. Yet there it was, waiting on Thomas's desk. The envelope was made from thick ivory paper, old, worn, as though it had traveled through decades rather than miles. Only one thing was written on the front: Thomas Whitmore. Nothing else. No address, no sender, no explanation. Inside, he found a single sheet of paper and a single message. The circus will return, as it does every 7 years. Do not ask questions, observe, and choose carefully whether to enter. Thomas read the message twice, then a third time. Something about it felt wrong, not frightening, not threatening, familiar, as though he had seen those words before, somewhere, long ago, in a memory he could no longer reach. That night, Thomas slept very little, and every time he closed his eyes, he felt as though someone was watching him from beyond the glass. The following morning, Greyfall awoke to rumors. At first, they came from the eastern streets, then the market square, then the station, until eventually, the entire town was speaking about the same thing: the circus. Thomas heard the stories before he saw it. A baker abandoning his shop, children running uphill, neighbors gathering along the ridge overlooking the valley. And when Thomas finally reached the hill, he stopped. The circus stood below, silent, motionless, impossible. The day before, the valley had been empty. Now enormous striped tents covered the landscape. Golden lights glowed through the fog. Crimson banners moved without wind. No roads led there, no wagon tracks, no horses, no evidence of arrival. It was as though the circus had emerged directly from the fog itself. Then Thomas noticed something else. The older residents of Greyfall were leaving, not approaching, leaving. And for the first time, he saw fear in their eyes. That evening, Thomas returned alone. The excitement that had filled Greyfall during the day was gone. Doors were closed, curtains drawn. The streets stood empty. It was as if the town had decided to pretend the circus did not exist. But Thomas could think of nothing else. The letter, the warning, the impossible valley, and the feeling that somehow all of it was connected. By the time he reached the circus, night had fallen. Fog drifted slowly across the ground. The lights beyond the entrance glowed like distant stars. Then he heard the music, soft, slow, almost beautiful. And yet, something about it felt wrong. The gate stood open, waiting. No guards, no ticket booth, no visitors. Only darkness beyond the entrance. Thomas stopped. Every instinct told him to turn around, to run, to return home. But curiosity is a powerful thing, especially when you are 11 years old. Then he noticed a figure standing beyond the gate, perfectly still, watching. The figure never moved, never spoke, never stepped forward. It simply waited, and somehow, that was far more frightening. Thomas took a breath, then another, and before he could change his mind, he stepped through the gate. The moment he crossed the threshold, the world behind him disappeared. The sounds of Greyfall vanished instantly. The wind disappeared. The music faded. Even Thomas's own footsteps seemed strangely distant. For a moment, he wondered if he had somehow gone deaf. Then he saw the corridor, a long passage stretching into the darkness. Lanterns hung from above, their golden light flickering against crimson fabric walls. At first glance, it seemed beautiful, almost welcoming. Then Thomas noticed the posters, hundreds of them, covering every surface. Acrobats, magicians, strongmen, fire eaters. But it wasn't the performers that caught his attention. It was the faces, the people standing beside them, the audience, the visitors, the smiling strangers staring out from faded photographs. The longer he looked, the stranger they became. A little girl holding a doll, a young soldier, an elderly woman, a family of 4. Every face seemed oddly familiar, not because he knew them, but because they felt connected to something forgotten. Then he stopped before a single photograph, a family standing together, smiling, frozen forever. But their eyes looked terrified. A chill ran through him, and suddenly, he understood something. The people in these photographs were not performers. They were guests. People who had entered the circus. People who had never left. At the end of the corridor, someone was waiting. Tall, elegant, perfectly composed. The man wore a black coat tailored with impossible precision. A dark top hat rested above silver hair, and his smile was warm enough to inspire trust, which somehow made it even more unsettling. "Welcome, Thomas." The voice echoed softly through the corridor. Thomas froze. His heart stopped for a moment. "How do you know my name?" The man smiled. "As you can see, I know many things." His voice was calm, almost comforting, like a teacher or a grandfather. Yet beneath it, Thomas sensed something ancient, something older than Greyfall, older than memory. "My name is Valerian." The ringmaster extended a hand. Thomas did not take it. "What is this place?" Valerian glanced toward the darkness beyond the corridor. Then he answered, "A crossroads, a refuge, a prison, a gift." The words made no sense, yet somehow they felt important. Thomas took a step backward. "I want to leave." For the first time, Valerian's smile faded, only slightly. Most people say that. And yet, very few truly wish to. Something about the answer frightened Thomas more than he wanted to admit, because deep down, a small part of him understood exactly what Valerian meant. The corridor opened into a vast arena, and Thomas stopped breathing. The tent should not have been this large. From outside, it appeared enormous. From inside, it felt impossible. Rows of seats stretched endlessly into darkness. Hundreds of spectators sat watching, silent, motionless, waiting. The performance had already begun. Acrobats soared through the air, their movements graceful, effortless, almost supernatural. Far above the arena, a woman floated beneath the ceiling. For several seconds she remained completely still, as though gravity no longer existed. The audience never reacted. No applause, no laughter, no conversation, nothing, only silence. Then the music began. A violin, slow, beautiful, haunting. Thomas had never heard the melody before, and yet he felt as though he somehow remembered it, like a forgotten dream, like a memory that refused to return. The music filled the arena, and for the first time, Thomas felt something unexpected. The desire to stay, to sit down, to watch, to forget everything else. The feeling terrified him, because part of him wanted exactly that. Then he noticed something. No one in the audience blinked. Not once. Not a single movement. Not a whisper. Not a breath. The spectators no longer looked human. They looked like statues, condemned to watch the same performance forever. Then Thomas heard another sound, a melody, soft, melancholic, childlike, somewhere beyond the arena. Valerian said nothing. He simply pointed toward the darkness, and Thomas followed the music. At the far end of the tent stood an old carousel. Its paint had faded long ago. Its golden decorations were worn by time. Its lights flickered weakly through the fog. And yet, it continued turning, slowly, relentlessly, as though it had never stopped, round and round, again and again. The music felt strangely sad, like a memory struggling to survive. Then Thomas noticed something. One of the horses was occupied. A child sat upon it, motionless, silent, watching the darkness ahead. The boy looked no older than 10, perhaps 11. His clothes belonged to another era. His face was pale, his expression empty. "Who is he?" Thomas asked. Valerian answered immediately. "One of our guests." The boy never blinked, never moved, never spoke. "How long has he been here?" For the first time, Valerian seemed to consider the question. Then he smiled. "Time behaves differently here." The carousel continued turning, round and round. Then, slowly, the child turned his head, only slightly, just enough. His eyes met Thomas's, and in that instant, Thomas felt something impossible. Recognition, not because he knew the child, but because somewhere, buried deep inside Greyfall's oldest stories, he had heard about him before. The same face, the same age, the same child, appearing generation after generation, never changing, never growing older. And suddenly, Thomas understood. The circus was not collecting visitors, it was keeping them. That night, the fog became thicker than ever before. The lights of the circus dimmed, one by one. The music slowed, then stopped. The performers vanished. The audience disappeared. The arena grew silent, cold, empty. Thomas ran. He no longer cared about answers. He no longer cared about mysteries. He wanted only one thing: to leave, to return home, to see Greyfall again. But every path led back into fog. Every corridor brought him somewhere unfamiliar. The circus seemed endless, a maze built from shadows and silence. He called for help. No answer came. He shouted. Only echoes returned. Then, he heard Valerian's voice. Calm, gentle, everywhere at once. Some stories end, Thomas, and some become part of the archive. The fog swallowed everything. The last lantern disappeared. Darkness closed around him. And then, nothing. When the sun rose the following morning, the circus was gone. No tents, no wagons, no footprints, no sign that it had ever existed. Only fog and wet grass. The people of Greyfall searched for Thomas Whitmore, for days, for weeks, for months. Eventually, they stopped. His name became another entry in a growing list. The missing, the forgotten, the ones who entered the circus and never returned. The story should have ended there, but it didn't. 67 years later, workers renovating an abandoned house made an unexpected discovery. Hidden inside a wall, they found a photograph no one had ever seen before. It showed the circus, the performers, the audience, and seated in the front row was Thomas Whitmore, exactly as he had been on the night he vanished. 11 years old, not a day older, not a single change. The photograph carried a date, October 1887, the night he disappeared. And even today, among all the mysteries preserved inside the Greyfall archives, many believe this is not the most frightening part. The most frightening part is that every 7 years, someone reports seeing a young boy standing at the edge of the fog, watching, waiting, as though he is expecting the circus to return. Once more, this file is closed. The mystery is not. Somewhere in Greyfall, another record is waiting to be found. I am Knox, and Greyfall remembers.
The next story is already waiting. Subscribe to enter the archive.